Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. Black heart is shining black in again. I didn't mean to say that actually this time. I meant to say signing black in. But yeah, shining black in again, as we all do. Asking you to hit that share button. Thanks if you hit like or subscribe, but the share button especially because sharing, well, the message is more important than the messenger is. I mentioned before in that 48-minute long video about how black consciousness and then colorism led me to the Ibmore red pill. At that time, I could not be considered SYSBM as far as I knew, because I was not married yet at that point. I had been married 2 times, but I was yet to marry my current wife, who ironically has the same passport that I do from the U.S., but that's from naturalization. And so I recorded that, and I explained how for the longest time I was trying to figure out what it was that was getting me to be treated as less than by black women, not so much as a friend per se, but treated as less than romantically. Why would they act interested and then play games? I didn't get it. And I looked at the possibility that it was clothing, rap, game, walk, all this stuff. And eventually I had eliminated everything that was within my control, and that only left that which was beyond my control. And then, of course, someone came and told me, and then another one, and then another one, all in the same summer. 3 women, African Americans, confirmed for me that it was my phenotype, that's what it was. It was merely the melanin I did not have, the way my hair grew out of my scalp, being unrecognizable to our people. That just made it worse. And sisters just did not feel comfortable risking accusations of interracial dating being seen out in public with me. But that because I was not ugly, that was why it was that I had started to be hit up by women in committed relationships and even married women. That was the perfect excuse to have me as the side dude. I mention this to you for a reason. I was giving background as to what my biases actually were and actually were not, and how I had seen that while there was at least some semblance of a valid reason to treat me differently than other black men, there was no semblance of a valid reason to treat a thinking and competent and productive black man who was handsome to women differently from how you would treat a negative stereotype that might even be less visually attractive to black women. I was comparing the two. In both cases, I should say, you have men that don't fit the stereotype. I don't fit the phenotypical stereotype, nor the behavioral stereotypes that a white supremacist has in his mind. But Poindexter does not fit the behavioral stereotypes. And consequently, simply because he is not like Tretch from Naughty by Nature, he is the same as Steve Urkel and there's no in between. Now, this time, I'm recording this to tell you that the phenotype has come into play again with regards to something else. I'm here in the Middle East. I'm in a Gulf nation. I am here to head off the white supremacist propaganda before it gets further developed than what it is. Now, it's already here to a certain extent. But I'm here to head it off and get rid of it before it gets any more, at least in whatever areas in which I may live. And I must say that I've actually met with some success at it, because as I meet locals and I do befriend them, there's something that happens. When they realize that, in fact, I am just as black as I tell them I am, because they don't believe it when I first tell them. And they don't even know why someone would look like me and say it. But when they realize that, no, that actually is how I identify. And because that's in my DNA, the propaganda begins to unravel. And some of them start to confess, well, I heard that the black folks in the United States and in London were dangerous. And I'm like, poor people in general are dangerous when they get hungry. That's true. But if we're dangerous because of our DNA, then why the hell why did we not colonize the Middle East and we were right next door? What's the reason we didn't do it? The only time it happened was when Abyssinia once colonized Yemen, and that was brief. Why did this not happen on a massive scale previously when our continent is bigger and we're right next door and there are more of us? Because we're not dangerous, that's why. I had these talks with them in the last city in which I lived, the first city inside of this nation, first city in the Middle East in which I lived. By the time I left, now they might not have been anything, they might not have been worth anything academically. But the people who knew me were beginning to they were beginning to have a different way of thinking. And when I first got there, if I said to somebody, insult white people, they would say, oh no, I can't. I seek refuge in God from that. Oh, okay, why? Because that's racism? By the time I left, if I told someone, insult white people, they would say, oh yeah, certainly. May Allah ruin their lives in this world and in the next for what they did to everybody else. You see? They got it. Then I moved to the city in which I now live. A similar effect has taken place, but I want you to understand this is something that would take me another 12 years probably of living here to be able to bring just to this city and to change its mind. Not to where they love us and adore us and accept us. I'm not looking for that. But to simply where they understand one thing: we're not the enemy, and that white man is. That's what's important. Not that they love us, marry us, no. We can be separate. That's okay. They have black citizens here. Same last names as some of the non-blacks. Belonging to the same tribes. They don't necessarily always marry each other. They usually don't. But what I want them to understand is that we're not the enemy unless they choose to be, and that white man is. Now, here's where you come in. I can learn how they think because they'll talk freely in front of me with my phenotype, and I can tell you. But I need more of you guys out, not just here in the Middle East, but even in Southeast Asia, and just different areas of the world where they're not violent against us and would not be, to go ahead and head off this white supremacist brainwashing before it gets to the point where they will be. China and India are too far gone. These are not nations we need to look at rescuing from this brainwashing, so that maybe we can cooperate later, or at least we could coexist peacefully and we don't have to be enemies unnecessarily. No, China and India nations we need to look at taking over one day. When the race is unified, look at just colonizing them. Skin bleach, illegal at the point of death. Self-tanning products, sure, why not? Might even get a better job. We need to look at that and implement some black supremacy there at the point of a gun. I don't care if none of them are left afterwards. They should not have had white supremacist ideas from the beginning, just as examples. But other parts of the world, they're brainwashed, but they're not necessarily your enemies, and they're not dangerous to us. And we don't need them to be deceived into becoming dangerous and becoming enemies. We don't need more enemies, just like they don't. And we both need to remember that our common enemy is that damn cracker. And not even all of them that are white, but specifically that Western European. That colonizer who now exists today in the form of the white conservative. That's the enemy. Well, you get the idea. But the thing is, when I come and I try to represent, it doesn't have the same penetrative effect as if there were 7 of us in this city and they were recognizable and they showed that good character that the thinking, productive black man brings to the table. Because let me be honest, I'm saying all of this based on one thing that is true. The thinking and competent and productive black man brings more of a character to the table because he already has the mental strength to go against tradition and negative peer pressure when it doesn't work. He already can do that. He has done it. That's how he got to be what he is. And not only that, but that thinking and productive black man learns to control the biases that all human beings have, but many of them never learn to control and rather get controlled by. You may like someone, but when they're wrong, you can say, yeah, I like you. You just wrong about that, and I can see the evidence over there. Many of you have even been able to say, you know what, I was wrong about this because of what I didn't know. That objectivity right there will put you miles ahead of many other people anywhere you go. But here it will be appreciated. I was in, when I was in Malaysia a few weekends ago, my wife and I landed at the airport. We flew out of the Dubai airport to get there, but there were many Saudis on the flight with us, and my wife was the one, she knows the difference. She was the one that pointed them out and said, these are not Emiratis, these are Saudis. I looked at, even though I live and work in the Middle East, I looked at her and said, they all look alike to me. I only care who's black and who's not. Ain't none of them black. I'm supposed to know the difference. And she said, well, I can tell by what the women are wearing, the way that they tie. Well, anyway, she could tell mostly by the women. When we landed in the KL airport, we had to go through passport control in front of baggage claim. Guess what? In doing so, we a Saudi lady tried to talk to us to get help, but my wife didn't want to even admit that she could speak any Arabic at all. She was done with the mulattoes. If you think I'm hard on them, you ain't heard my wife. So my wife was talking back to the lady in in English, saying, I'm sorry, man, we don't understand. So I spoke broken Arabic very slowly. Not broken, but I spoke very slowly and haltingly, as if I was struggling more than I really was. And to the lady. And the lady asked, are you brother and sister? And I said to the lady, her brother lives here. We're going to meet him. But you really think I look good enough to be her brother? No. I'm her husband. And she kind of did a double take. But then we went to another line. The immigration officer, a lady, took my wife. I asked the officer, should I go with her or stay here? The lady said, you can stay there. And then my wife explained to her, okay, well, should he come next so that he can join me, or should I wait over there for him? And the lady said, I'll take him next. So she called me next. A Saudi lady tried to cut in the line with kids. I looked at her like, what are you doing? But before I could say anything, the immigration officer told her, ma'am, I didn't call you, I called him. Please wait in that line over there. Why? Because you're not next, that's why. I'm here for this line there that he's in. You're here for that officer's line there over on my left. He's the one that takes care of your line. Now wait in line if you want to get into the country. Saudi lady had to sit there and take it. Now, I'd heard all about Saudis. I'd seen some of that stuff too. I mean, I've been in the Medina, and I've been in Jeddah. So I know I've traveled with some of them, and they're actually very hospitable, very much so. But I've also seen how they act in a line. They don't wait in line. They do feel privileged. Not mean, not hostile, but they feel privileged. Now, why am I mentioning this to us? Well, it's quite simple. You see, there are parts of the world where they're not really welcome on a personal level. Legally, they can travel there, but they're not welcome on a personal level in many parts of the world. The Filipinos don't like it when the Saudis go there anymore. They're not fond of them. They just aren't. My wife's friend went there, and she was treated rudely until they realized that she was not Saudi. Then they apologized. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were Saudi. And they told her. The driver actually told her, I'm sorry, we thought you were Saudi, and they treat our people bad over there. So what I'm saying is that there are parts of the world, black man, where the people do not look up to the oppressor. All we got to do is make sure that they're no longer lied to about us, the oppressed. That's it. But I can't go to these areas and represent for us like that because the phenotype does not make me recognizable to everybody. I can undo some of the propaganda, but sometimes the most effective thing I can do against the brainwashing and propaganda is to pretend like I'm not one of us and then act like I'm confessing on behalf of white folks that we ain't shit, meaning white folk ain't shit. to talk as though if I'm white and then say, yeah, well, we deserve worse from them. Look at all that we did to them. And we did the same things to you because we're just a racist set of people and we're pieces of shit. We're so bad even the Eastern Europeans get sick of us because they don't do the same things to other people. And we don't treat them well either. Now, I can say stuff like this, and I've done it maybe twice to see how effective it was, and it was actually much better received. I mean, I wasn't even interrupted. I was actually allowed to finish what I was saying. That makes it very different. But I'm not going to sit up here and I'm not going to identify myself as the oppressor. That's not going to happen. But in order to fully undo this stuff, it's going to take more of you with the phenotype, with the melanin, with the nose and the lips and the hair to come abroad to places like this. And all you got to do is be your best self. You ain't even got to be nobody else, just your best self. And the people are going to figure it out. You know what? They actually do have a better character than white folks as long as they can make it. Until they're starving, they are superior. That's what they're going to wind up saying when they come across enough of you. In the Philippines, this has already begun to happen, has it not? In Thailand, this has begun to happen, has it not? But what about places where you can't go and buy the booty? Like in Malaysia and in Indonesia. Like here in the Middle East. What about these areas? What about in Melanesia where you could go to jail for trying to buy the booty even if they are poor? Those are black folks. But they're not hostile to black folks that ain't Melanesian. They love to meet you, but you got to represent. What about in these areas? I need y'all here with your recognizable phenotypes to get to undo this propaganda, because even if they don't fall in love with us and become allies, like what John Henry Clark told us to not look for, even if that doesn't happen, at least they'll understand two things. We're not the enemy, and the common enemy is that goddamn cracker. And don't you ever forget it. I hope that what I've said is a benefit. I hope one day it won't be true anymore, but I'm not optimistic about that. But I hope what I said is a benefit in the meantime. And I hope you get your passports and your skills and fit the guck off that plantation. Rather those plantations, the Canada and the UK as well. And Belize while I'm at it. The blackest man on social media, signing off. Assalamu alaikum and black male power.